AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
And away we go, episode 1193 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, November 6th, 2025. It is the day after the 3-6 Washington Commanders begin their practice week for their game against the 5-3 Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium this Sunday afternoon at 4:25 in Week 10 of the NFL's 2025 regular season. Now, the Commanders during the practice on Wednesday afternoon played music, as they sometimes do, and one of the songs that was played was Don't Stop Believing by Journey. A not-so-subtle message to the team about its season. But as you likely know, that also was the song that was playing in the final scene of the all-time great television show, The Sopranos. And it is in that scene that we believe, no pun intended, that the main character of the show, Tony Soprano, played by the late, great James Gandolfini, gets shot and killed. So the Commanders playing Don't Stop Believing by Journey on Wednesday afternoon may have been more appropriate than the team realized. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast, the podcast that follows Washington, D.C. area sports so that you don't have to. Good to have you with us. If I asked you what has been the worst unit on the Commanders this season, there is an at least decent chance that you would say the secondary. Well, head coach Dan Quinn, during his pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon, opened up about the struggles of two members of the secondary, cornerback Mike Sainristil and safety Quan Martin, two guys who had promising seasons last season, two guys who've struggled this season. Coming up on the show, discussion of the defense, including reaction to these comments from Quinn on Sainristil and Martin, as well as reaction to Quinn on what now for the Commanders at corner with Marshon Lattimore done for the season, and reaction to Quinn on the purpose of defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. moving from being in the Commanders' coach's booth during games to being on the Commanders' sideline during games. But before all of that, next segment, discussion of the offense and the state of the team's season, including insight from Quinn on the rushing offense, how the team is handling having been walloped by injury, and the notion of the Commanders, as Quinn put it, trying to win now and develop for tomorrow. I'll also take you through the Commanders' initial injury report for this game against the Lions. And also on the show, I'll discuss the Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards. The Caps, they on Wednesday night snapped a 4-game losing streak with a 6-1 win over the St. Louis Blues at Capital One Arena in a game in which the Great Eight top-line left wing Alex Ovechkin became the first player ever to score at least 900 career NHL regular season goals. The Wizards, they on Wednesday night lost at the Boston Celtics 136-107. Despite a big game for Alex Sarr, he in exactly 29 minutes as a starter had 31 points, 8 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 3 blocks, and 2 assists versus 2 turnovers. So before we get to some feedback, reports late night on Wednesday night that the Baltimore Orioles have agreed on a contract with free agent outfielder Leody Taveras. That would be a depth signing. He's entering his age 27 season. Has struggled over the last 2 seasons, but he for the 2023 regular season had 2.9 wins above replacement per Baseball Reference and playing for the Texas Rangers, who won the World Series that season. You could hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. From Edge on X on the Commanders making no trades in the lead up to the 2025 NFL trade deadline, which was on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Writes Edge, I guess nobody wanted our old players at the trade deadline. We have some years to go with this franchise. Hopefully AP can fix this mess. Only time will tell. Thank you for that, Edge. I was disappointed that the Commanders did not make any trades in the lead up to the deadline. I wanted the team to sell and sell hard to replenish draft capital. The team did not sell at all, and there are two realistic possibilities for why the team did not sell at all. A, general manager Adam Peters tried to sell, and there just was not much of a trade market for his players. B, Peters did not try to sell or did not try hard enough to sell. Neither scenario is good. I'm hoping that A was the case and not B. I'd be very disappointed if Peters didn't try to sell or didn't try hard to sell. That would suggest a delusion with the state of the team and or the state of the team season. My guess is that scenario A was the case, that there just was not much of a trade market for Commanders players. But of course, that's not a good scenario because that is an indictment of the roster. Email from Robert Schaefer on the Commanders season writes, Robert, Al, we're all hurting as fans and have nothing but prayers that Jaden recovers for the remainder of this season on the sideline. Time to get real. The next steps need to come from our prize GM. Adam needs to conduct a self-intervention. He should let every 30-something player know that the team is moving on immediately, Tress being the exception. Peters, as the talent evaluator, should then raid opposing teams' practice squads with youthful promise and speed in place of the removed 30-somethings. Peters then should turn this over to DQ with an ahem suggestion: play the youngins, give them 2 months to develop or not. The tea leaves were seriously misread. Ugh. Always in awe, Robert. Well, thank you very much for that, Robert. I second that emotion regarding this Commander season. Ugh. 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 I am all for a youth movement by the Commanders. I do not think that we will see that until the team loses another game or two. The Commanders in the NFL's 2025 regular season are 3-6. Making the playoffs in this NFC this season almost certainly is going to require a record of at least 10-7. Even that may not be good enough, but the Commanders are 2 losses away from being guaranteed to not go at least 10-7. I don't think that the team would go with a youth movement, would go with an all-in for 2026 approach until suffering that 8th loss. So the Commanders are home to the Detroit Lions this Sunday afternoon at 4:25, and then have the game against the Miami Dolphins in Spain on Sunday morning, November 16th at 9:30, and then have a Week 12 bye. If the Commanders somehow shock the world and beat the Lions this Sunday, and then beat the Dolphins in Spain and go into the bye 5-6, then the season is back on. And I would bet that that is what the Commanders are thinking internally. Find a way to beat the Lions, beat the Dolphins in Spain, get to the bye at 5-6. Stop laughing. I would bet that that is what the Commanders are thinking internally. Email from David Hilliard on why the Commanders are having such a disappointing season. Writes David, Hi Al, I enjoy listening to your show each day. As I listen, it seems to me that everyone is trying to avoid saying the very obvious. The Commanders are horrible because of the injuries. It's really that simple. There are other factors that are making the scores worse, but ultimately, it's too many injuries to the team's top players. The hurt players on defense were the worst ones to lose. Wise and Armstrong were brought in to fix problems. Couple that with a crippled offense, and this is what happens. I agreed with getting more draft capital, but not loving the idea of losing guys like Payne and Luvu. We do need to build the core. I also feel like Ertz is having the big drop-off everyone expected last season. I believe the team should seriously consider a new defensive coordinator. I know Quinn has a personal relationship with the DC, but I don't think he knows what to teach the players. If we lose enough games, maybe we get a very good edge defender or receiver. I hear that the team has changed Marshon Lattimore's last name to let him score. I believe we'd be 6-3 if not for the injuries. I remember the body bag game. This is turning into the body bag season. Wrap the quarterback in bubble wrap for the season. Time to plan for 2026, as much as it pains me to say that. Keep up the great work. Thank you for the email, David. Well, cornerback Marshon Lattimore is done for the season due to a torn ACL. So no more Marshon Lattimore for this season, and maybe ever for the Commanders. He may have played his last game for the team, given that he has zero guaranteed money left on his contract. He is a big-time and obvious salary cap cut candidate for this coming off season. Injuries are the number one reason for the Commanders' disappointing season. I would rank the reasons for the team's disappointing season like this. Number one, injuries. Number two, and this is tied to number one, but a roster that isn't good enough or deep enough to withstand an above average amount of injuries, and included in this reason is the team being old. Number three, a brutal schedule featuring a brutal slate of opposing quarterbacks. Number four, bad turnover luck. Number five, expected regression on offense in third down efficiency and fourth down efficiency, each of which tends to fluctuate season to season. Those five reasons are tangible, crystal clear reasons for the Commanders' disappointing season. The wild card reason, to me, is coaching. And I say wild card reason because it is hard to say how much coaching has been a problem this season. We can theorize, we can hypothesize the extent to which coaching has been a problem this season. I certainly am open to coaching having been a problem this season, but we don't know, at least not yet, how much coaching has been a problem this season. I mean, there's the obvious thing of everyone's to blame, including the coaches. Okay, yeah, but like with the defense, we know that defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. has tried a lot of different things to get this defense to be better. Commanders analyst Mark Bullock has talked about that on this podcast extensively, that the players, especially in the secondary, have just botched a bunch of different things that should not have been botched. So is Whitt doing a bad job of coaching? Or is he handcuffed by the injuries and by an aging roster that is not as good as we thought/hoped? You know, a tradition like no other with our football team is near or at the end of a bad season, there being a lengthy expose, usually by the Washington Post or ESPN.com, on things that went wrong. And this is where we get anonymous quotes and anonymous sources and reveals of behind-the-scenes problems about which we had no idea. Is one or more of those exposés coming? Is there more to why the Commanders are having such a disappointing season than meets the eye? You gotta wonder. But so far, there have been zero indications of internal problems or anything like that. Another thing to wonder is, if the losing continues, do players start to check out and or quit? And that will be a good test of the culture, of the brotherhood. During Dan Quinn's day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, had this exchange between Commanders insider Tashawn Reed of the Washington Post and Quinn.
Dan, I know, that last year obviously didn't happen, but in your past as a head coach, you've led teams that weren't having the best season or may not be having the season that they expected. In those moments as a head coach, how do you ensure that, you don't have situations where guys may be, checking out just because things aren't going your way?
Yeah, I think that's when you got to lean in the hardest, Deshaun. During the best of spaces, that's when standards and things, are pretty easy to follow. It's in the hardest spaces that you're able to lean in on it. And we're fortunate about the group that is here, what they stand for, and being in the team meeting today, it's hard, man. But we're also the ones that got into it, and we're the same ones who are going to get out of it. And you got to own all of it, man. That's really where we start. You own it. This is not a spot to, place blame. It's a spot of, how to fix it. And so that's what we lean in on the hardest. And yeah, we know we're capable of doing that. But you just dig in one at a time, man. As cliche as it sounds, you just absolutely go for it for the next moment in the next game.
All right, email from Steve in Gulfport, Florida. Steve says that he has been a diehard Skins fan since 1979. Right, Steve? Al, look, I am not going to trash the merits of analytics. I think advanced numbers and metrics are important and have their place until you can't see the forest for the trees. We just microwaved the yummy leftovers from last season and expected the same great taste. Brutal. I was 100% on board with Dan Quinn, but I don't know how or if this situation is going to mend itself. I really thought he was thorough and meticulous. He just seems to be overwhelmed with data and can't process the simple situations with rational thought. Worst case, grab Mike McDaniel and tell him to find the best defensive coordinator available. Pray for Jaden's future. Hashtag HTTR, hashtag HTTC. Cheers to the best voice in podcasting/radio. Well, thank you very much for that, Steve. So Miami Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel, he has his own problems right now. I would not want him as the Commanders head coach given the internal problems that the Dolphins pretty clearly have. But it is interesting that Steve brought up Mike McDaniel from this standpoint. Adam Peters. Mike McDaniel was an offensive assistant for the Redskins for the 2011 through 2013 seasons, including being the Skins receivers coach for the 2013 season. But perhaps more relevant to the Commanders is that Mike McDaniel was an offensive assistant for the San Francisco 49ers for the 2017 through 2021 seasons. He was the Niners run game specialist for the 2017 season, was the Niners run game coordinator for the 2018 through 2020 seasons, and was the Niners offensive coordinator for the 2021 season. Adam Peters, of course, worked for the Niners. In fact, worked for the Niners throughout Mike McDaniel's time with the Niners. Peters worked for the Niners January 2017 to January 2024. He was their vice president of player personnel January 2017 to February 2021, was their assistant general manager February 2021 to January 2024. If Commanders offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury leaves the team this coming offseason for a head coaching job, either in the NFL or in college. There are a lot of big-time head coaching openings in college football. But if Kingsbury leaves the team this coming offseason, and if the Dolphins fire Mike McDaniel, would Adam Peters and Dan Quinn hire McDaniel as Commanders offensive coordinator? Now, the Commanders do have this succession plan for offensive coordinator with all of these well-regarded offensive assistants, right? Assistant head coach / offensive pass game coordinator Brian Johnson, and run game coordinator / running backs coach Anthony Lynn, and quarterbacks coach Tavita Pritchard, and assistant quarterbacks coach David Blau. Would / should Adam Peters and Dan Quinn bypass all of those guys to hire Mike McDaniel as offensive coordinator if Cliff Kingsbury leaves and if the Dolphins fire McDaniel? Something to think about. We have entered the holiday season. A great idea for dinner, a great idea for a gift is Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks food is outstanding. You know, my dad got us Omaha Steaks as a Christmas gift a few years ago. He won that Christmas. Best gift that we got. From handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, chicken, pork, seafood, plus tailgating favorites like chicken wings, smash burgers, and big deli-style franks. The food is so good, and right now during Omaha Steaks' semi-annual sale, you get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, you get an extra $35 off with the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety, and every bite is backed by a 100% guarantee. Omaha Steaks is a family-owned company that has been America's original butcher since 1917. Yes, over 100 years of expertise in the meat industry. Bring home the legendary flavor and everyday convenience of Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during Omaha Steaks' semi-annual sale. And for an extra $35 off, use the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. Using that promo code helps out this podcast a lot, so thank you in advance. The promo code is simply my name, ALGALDI. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with the promo code ALGALDI at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. The Washington Commanders, they on Wednesday afternoon practiced in preparation for their game against the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Next segment, we'll talk Commanders defense. This segment, we talk Commanders offense and also some general themes with the Commanders given the state of their season. 6 Commanders offensive players were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Quarterback Jaden Daniels did not practice due to the dislocated left elbow that he suffered in the team's 38-14 loss to to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past Sunday night. Receiver Terry McLaurin did not practice due to his quadriceps injury. He, for the loss to the Seahawks, was inactive off having re-injured the quad in the Commanders' 28-7 loss at the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football on October 27th. And McLaurin in that game returned from a 4-game absence caused by the quadriceps injury. Basically zero chance that McLaurin plays this Sunday against the Lions. Running back Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was a limited participant in practice due to dental work, and his listed injured body part was tooth. The Commanders' injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice listed Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt having been a limited participant in practice due to a tooth. I like that. Tight end Colson Yankoff, he was a limited participant in practice due to the hamstring injury that has caused him to be inactive for each of the Commanders' last 2 games. And left tackle Laramie Tunsil and tight end Zach Ertz did not practice, but due to rest, although Tunsil was listed as still dealing with a hamstring issue. Also, the Commanders on Wednesday morning announced having signed receiver Traylon Burks from the practice squad to the active roster. He takes the place of receiver Luke McCaffrey, who in the loss to the Seahawks suffered a broken collarbone on a game-opening 19-yard kickoff return. The Commanders on Tuesday afternoon announced having placed McCaffrey on the reserve/injured list. Not on the reserve/injured list, at least not yet, is Jayden Daniels. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn, during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, said that Daniels has a dislocated left elbow, but no fracture, but also that more intel was being gathered. That the team has yet to place him on the reserve/injured list is encouraging, but of course he could be put on that sometime soon. How long is Daniels expected to be out? Is he done for the season? Dan Quinn did a pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon. We, during that presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider John Keim of ESPN and Quinn.
With Jayden not on IR, what's the update on him? With the plan for him?
Yep, we are actually going through a final medical meeting today regarding, second opinions and that to put the plan together. So we should have an update for you here, the next day or so. Just being thorough through the whole process, like all the guys, to make sure all the opinions and then gather all the info and then make the decisions from there.
All right, so we wait and see and hope with Jayden Daniels. And so here we go again. Marcus Mariota as the Commanders' starting quarterback. He on Sunday will start for the 4th time in 10 games for the team in this regular season. Will he be complemented by a good rushing offense? So the Commanders in the loss to the Seahawks faced an elite run defense in that of the Seahawks. It did have some success in terms of rushing offense off the Commanders' rushing offense having been really bad in each of the team's previous 3 games. Now, it is tricky to evaluate this because so much of that game against the Seahawks was garbage time, okay? But Commanders running backs and receivers who got carries in the game, running backs Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Jeremy McNichols, and receiver Deebo Samuel Sr. combined for 26 carries for 106 yards and a touchdown. The Seahawks for this regular season through Week 8 were number 1 in the NFL in run defense in terms of expected points added per play per RBSDM.com, and were number 1 in the NFL in fewest yards allowed per carry at 3.29. Now, the Lions for this regular season through Week 9 are number 10 in the NFL in run defense in terms of expected points added per play per RBSDM.com. So another good run defense that the Commanders are facing. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Mitch Tischler of Monumental Sports Network and Dan Quinn.
Kind of like you were talking with Mikey and the defense playing within the defense there. When you look at the running game specifically, do you think that have you seen the offense taking what's being given to them, or do you think that folks are trying to press outside and do a little bit more and make a bigger play out of something that's not necessarily there?
I think there could be signs of both. There was a run in the game where it was a smaller distance to go, maybe a 2nd and 1 or that, where, hey, man, get the first, as opposed to, and I can get the big one over here, though. No, man, get the first. And so that's an example of real competitiveness misguided. Like the dog-ass competing is everything we love and want to be about, but I just got to stay in the discipline to get this moment, this yard, this conversion, and then you go play again. Some of it come into penalties too, to say you grabbed, you shouldn't have. In the run game, you certainly don't want any penalties on offense in the run game. If there is, and there's somebody's hitting the quarterback and you grab them, like that's where those should come. But those are things that knock you out when you can get a penalty that, like could have been avoided, because all of a sudden you may go from a second and a short or a second down. Now you're at second and 25 and you stall, and that kind of bleeds into like starting fast. We're ready to go, second and 25, next drive, another penalty to go, and all of a sudden you're spinning, and you want to get going. So I think the discipline, and it's not like, how can I say this in the best way? They're not undisciplined. Don't overtry. Right? It's not a knowing assignments or bullshitting. It's, man, this is just hit this part and get it right. Hit the target, get to the space. You don't have to do the extra and the extra. And as a competitor, sometimes that can be hard. I know I can make that play right over there. That's not the one right now. This is what's needed. So it's not chaos or that. It's truly like the discipline to just stay in that space, into that moment, down after down after down. And if somebody beats you on a good play, I guess NFL football, you can live with that. But don't beat ourselves. And too often when you do that, man, that's a hard-ass hole to climb out of. And when the margins are smaller. So you want to make sure, man, stay in that space, stay with the discipline. And if you can do that, then, you give yourself, a much better shot at playing well.
Well, I do want to see more carries for Chris Rodriguez. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is really cooled off. Rodriguez on Sunday night looked good. He had 12 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. No targets, played on 34% of the Commanders' offensive snaps. So much of this Commander season is being dictated and governed by injury. I hate it. I'm so sick of talking about this team's injuries. I'm sure that you are sick of hearing about this team's injuries, but what must this be like for the team itself? We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between John Keim and Dan Quinn.
We've talked a lot about the physical toll of the injuries and just like guys who are missing. What's the mental toll on this many injuries on a team? When you see, I know it's next man up, but what's the mental toll like?
Yeah, it's a great question, John. It is, because there's continuity issues that take place first off when you have an injury of people, not in sync all the time together. But the mental toll, it's definitely a big one. It's also for the guys that are out, some that are out that'll come back, some that are out for the season. And the ones that I worry about are the ones out for the season. As far as the mental toll collectively, team, like everybody goes through it, and some stuff, not injuries, but I'm saying hard things, and you find your way and you adapt. But it's better to acknowledge it, talk about it, and find the best plan moving forward. And if you have the right mindset to go solve the problems, then, okay, this is what we need to go do, and this is how we need to go do it. I think just being straight about it, John, is the best approach to eliminate any doubt. This is how we're going to go win, and each game is winnable, and you have to say this is how we're going to go do it for this game. And that may look different week to week, but for us, that's where the focus goes. And I try to explain that in the beginning of the week, and then you try to make that come to life through the game plan and the practice. And so having a whole week to go do that against a talented Detroit team, like we'll need the whole week and the practice to do that.
Well, this to me is the worst season of injury luck for Washington since at least 2018, when we had the team's top two quarterbacks, Alex Smith and Colt McCoy, each suffering a fractured fibula in a span of 3 games. That was something. But the Redskins as a whole that season did not have the horrible injury luck that the team is having this season. 2017 also was a terrible season for the Skins in terms of injury luck. The Skins' offensive line that season was ripped apart by injury. But this season is just one of those seasons. Every NFL team has a season like this at some point, a season of brutal injury luck. Are we at, or at least nearing, the point at which the Commanders shift the focus to 2026? We discussed this during the opening segment of the show. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between Barry Svrluga, columnist for the Washington Post, and Dan Quinn.
Dan, is there any balance between what's right in front of you, the Detroit game, that game that week, and the big picture of what's good for this roster, this team in the long haul?
Well, I think always you want to this, you may or may not have heard this term, but win now but develop for tomorrow. And I think you can have both buckets. if you're organized and thoughtful in how you're developing players. We know some first and second year guys, there's going to be more bumps in the road than just a veteran who's played lots and lots and lots. That's to be expected, but you can do both. And that's our approach here to make sure I love on the first and second year guys, some of the developments that they're making. It goes sometimes this and then this, and man, it'd be awesome if it just kept going up, but that's not how development works. So I think the balance of both is important, but I think you can have two buckets, and I think you can do both simultaneously. Some shift based on opponent, where you're at, but I think you can do both.
Dan Quinn's not wrong with what he said there. An NFL team can both win now and develop for tomorrow. And in fact, if you are successfully developing for tomorrow, that can lead to winning now. The NFL is not MLB, the NBA, or the NHL, in that a successful rebuild in the NFL can realistically take just a year or two. There's no such thing anymore as a 3 to 5 year rebuild in the NFL like there is in MLB, the NBA, and the NHL. We, with Washington, D.C.'s MLB team, the Nationals, have a rebuild that is taking forever and that has gone so poorly that it has resulted in a revamping of the team's baseball operations. We, with D.C.'s NBA team, the Wizards, have a rebuild that's taken a while and may take a long while. We'll see. We should not have that with the Commanders, and I don't think that we do, even though the team's amazing success last season was not indicative of how good the team truly was. Catering by Uptown. It provides catering to perfection. Whatever event you're planning, a wedding, a holiday party, whatever, visit cateringbyuptown.com. Mention that Al Galdi sent you and see what Catering by Uptown can do for you. Catering by Uptown provides both great service and a great price. Catering by Uptown is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Commanders fans and loyal supporters of this podcast. Catering by Uptown specializes in handling everything so that you don't have to. Catering by Uptown understands that special events deserve to be celebrated in style and thus takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. Great service, amazing cuisine, and reliability are the foundation of what makes Catering by Uptown one of the most referred caterers throughout Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And know this, if you go to cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you can set up your own personal tour of one of Catering by Uptown's premier venues, including outstanding waterfront venues. Catering by Uptown offers the ability to coordinate services at over 100 of the best reception halls, vineyards, farms, historic homes, event venues, banquet facilities, and wedding venues in the area. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. More now on the Washington Commanders, off them practicing on Wednesday afternoon in preparation for their game against the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. This segment focus on the Commanders' defense. 7 Commanders defensive players were on the team's injury report for Wednesday afternoon's practice. Safety Quan Martin did not practice, this due to a hamstring injury that he dealt with in the team's 38-14 loss to the Seattle Seahawks at Northwest Stadium on Sunday Night Football this past Sunday night. Safety Tyler Owens did not practice due to a hamstring injury. Cornerback Trey Amos was a limited participant in practice due to a hip problem that he dealt with in the loss to the Seahawks. Interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton was a limited participant in practice due to his ankle ailment. Interior defensive lineman Eddie Goldman was a limited participant in practice due to a concussion that he suffered in the loss to the Seahawks. Linebacker Bobby Wagner was a full participant in practice but was on the injury report due to a thumb issue, and edge defender Von Miller did not practice but due to rest. Meantime, it turns out that the Commanders will have linebacker Frankie Luvu available for Sunday. The NFL on Monday night announced that the league had suspended Luvu without pay for one game. This for repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players. So the NFL ruled that Luvu, in the loss to the Seahawks, was guilty of his 3rd hip drop tackle of this regular season. But Luvu appealed the suspension, and he won the appeal. That news broke late night on Tuesday night via a post on X from NFL Senior Vice President of Football and International Communications, Michael Signora. Quote, hearing officer Derek Brooks, jointly appointed by the NFL and the NFLPA, reduced the one-game suspension of Washington's Frankie Louvu to a $100,000 fine. Louvu is eligible to play on Sunday. And, quote, good news. No, Frankie Louvu is not having his best season, but the last thing that our injury-ravaged Commanders need right now is to be without another key player. The specific tackle for which Louvu got suspended seemed like a borderline hip-drop tackle and reeked of hypocrisy when Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels multiple times in this regular season has been tackled in a hip-drop tackle-like fashion, and yet no penalties have been called, although no penalty was called on Louvu on Sunday night. But this is strange. If Louvu wasn't guilty of a hip drop tackle on Sunday night, then why is he still being fined $100,000? And if he was guilty of a hip drop tackle on Sunday night, then why was the suspension lifted? Like he's either guilty or he isn't. There really shouldn't be any gray area here. You're either guilty or you're not. If he isn't guilty, then he shouldn't be receiving any punishment. Him having the suspension removed but being fined seems like a split the baby in half type solution. The Commanders on Wednesday morning announced having signed interior defensive lineman Sheldon Day from the practice squad to the active roster. That was done because Day in this regular season has been elevated from the practice squad to the active roster for a game the maximum 3 times. Day is playing a good bit. He in the loss to the Seahawks played on 33% of the Commanders' defensive snaps. Also, the Commanders on Wednesday morning announced having signed 2 unrestricted free agent defensive backs, cornerback Trey Hawkins and safety Darryl Worley, to the practice squad, and that was done in part because the team on Tuesday afternoon announced having placed cornerback Marshon Lattimore on the reserve/injured list. This due to a torn ACL that he suffered in the loss to the Seahawks. So Lattimore, of course, is not having a good season. He, for this regular season, has an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of just 52.1. Not good. PFF grades are on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average, but Lattimore for this regular season is number 1 among all Commanders cornerbacks in defensive snaps, 89.06%. So what now for our team at corner, which hasn't exactly been a position group of strength for our team this season? We on Wednesday afternoon during head coach Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference had this exchange between Donna Hopkins of Pro Football Plus and Quinn.
Hey, Coach. In looking back at your cornerback room with the injury you had to Marshon out for the year, I think Trey is nicked with a little hip injury. How are you looking to, I guess, to move that room around? Does Mikey maybe go back on the outside, Jonathan Jones? How does that room look at this point?
Yeah, you're on it. The candidates of Jonathan, obviously, he's going to play more, and Noah, he's got the experience inside as nickel as well. So having Jonathan here, and Mike with both inside and outside flex, that's a big deal, Donna, because now you're not just he can only play this spot. Think of it like the offensive lineman that can only play center and can't play guard. So the fact that those 2 guys play both, that's a big deal for us, and Noah as well. So when you're outside, that's a tough job, and sometimes that's, like Marshon and Trey mostly play on the outside, but when you have flexibility both, it allows defensively you to, maybe there's a matchup you like, you can even switch in a drive if you'd like, and so that can help too. But you're on the right track. It'll take a few guys to work through how we'll go, moving forward from here.
Well, interesting to hear that from Dan Quinn. Sounds like we could be seeing more of cornerback Noah Igbenogany, who played a lot last season, but who has barely played this season. Igbenogany for this regular season has played on just 7.35% of the Commanders' defensive snaps, and it sounds like Mike Sainristil could be moving back to being an outside corner, and maybe, just maybe, that's what he needs to be better. Sainristil last season had a very encouraging rookie season in which he started off as a slot corner, but then moved to being an outside corner. Sainristil this season has had a really bad season, and he, during this season, has been a slot corner. The Commanders took Sainristil in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of the University of Michigan. The idea was for him to be a slot corner, but maybe he is best as an outside corner. He did pretty well as an outside corner last season. Mike Sainristil for this regular season has an overall grade for Pro Football Focus of just 50.9. What has happened to Mike Sainristil? Well, a decent chunk of Dan Quinn's pre-practice press conference on Wednesday afternoon was spent talking about Sainristil. We on Wednesday afternoon had this back and forth between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Quinn. Then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of The Athletic and Quinn.
Dan, what is the film showing you about Mikey this season?
Yeah, I would say there's been up and down moments, meaning the playmaker, the interceptions I saw at L.A. and the last couple of weeks, so the ball hawking mindset, which I love. There's also been a couple of plays of over-trying, to make those plays, and that's kind of part of the process. You don't like to go through that, but when you're capable of making plays, well, I'll make some more, and I'll make a few more, and then all of a sudden, that's not the one that you need to take a chance on. In the basketball world, I'm not going to force this shot. That's what sometimes happens to a ball player who has the skills to go do that. And I think there's been some examples of that this year. And I'm not surprised because he's a competitor and wants to help and make plays. And so part of my training with the guys and talking to them, I want them to feel backs against the wall and fight for that. But I don't want them to over-try to make things up, to go try to win. Like the attitude, the mindset, that's good, but not at the expense of veering off course to do something that could have other consequences. And he has to learn that, I would say, but he's not alone in that. That's, everybody, when you're fight like hell, you want to make a play for the team, you want to change the course of things, and so it's actually when you need to be the most disciplined. And those are good, hard lessons, but ones that I'm certain that he's learning too.
What does he have to lean into as a second-year player who has this? It's a natural kind of progression. There's tape on you now. There's ways to attack you now. And what does he have to lean into to kind of get through those rough patches when it doesn't go the way he would like it to go?
Yeah, I think you have to lean into the discipline and the technique, because when you play with that and you have that and you can lean on that, man, then you're good, David, because now I know I can play the technique and play it when you're maybe I'm off, I'm back, I want to take a shot, then you're not out of the technique. So I think there's like a real discipline that has to take place. And as you're going through, sometimes I feel like he's older than going into the second year, but some of those players that have more years, okay, that's not the time. That's not the place to go take your shot. He's still learning that. And I know that he'll learn from this. He's a sharp guy, but we can't have ones where you can and where you can't. So the discipline, I would say, is the biggest factor for a ball player who's a playmaker, because they know they can make the next one and make the next one. And so I imagine that's much the same conversation, which the right shot when you've covered that. So it's for the guys that aren't capable of making some of those, they are probably more disciplined in sometimes, because I can't make that play all the way over there, where sometimes a player thinks they can.
Sort of a two-part playing off that. Is it expected then that you're seeing it in year two more so than year one with him, and then just with him and Quan together, just the two together, how do you feel like they're developing after a really strong first year together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And they're both going through it too, they want it to be right and good. Like, these are two really committed guys. And so, going for Quan, like whether it's a tackling, that didn't go the way that you want, and he's somebody that I have all the faith in to get those done. But when you miss him, you want to talk about him, acknowledge him, and say, this is what needs to be done to go make this play, get this technique done. And sometimes over-trying can be that way. I want to do this, and I thought he was going to do that, and no, man, just trust the technique. And so I've sensed with both of them some of that, and they're two guys that I just believe in so much, and to stay in the discipline of it, and those plays will generally be made.
All right, good stuff there from Dan Quinn on Mike Sainristil, and also on safety Quan Martin, another Commanders defensive back who has regressed. Martin for this regular season has an overall grade per Pro Football Focus of just 51.7. The Commanders took Martin in the second round of the 2023 NFL Draft out of the University of Illinois. He last season showed promise, especially considering that he played much of last season with two separated shoulders, but he this season has been really up and down. Quan Martin might be the first player in NFL history to have played better with two separated shoulders than he did with two healthy shoulders. I, in the opening segment of the show, gave you my ranking of the primary reasons for the Commanders' disappointing 2025 season. I labeled coaching a wild card reason. Well, if Mikey Sainristil does go back to being an outside corner, and he plays a lot better as an outside corner than he has as a slot corner, then that will be an indictment of defensive coordinator Joe Whitt Jr. for having had Sainristil playing the wrong role. And speaking of Joe Whitt, Dan Quinn, during his day after the game press conference on Monday afternoon, revealed that Whitt is moving from being in the Commanders' coach's booth during games to being on the Commanders' sideline during games. We on Wednesday afternoon had this exchange between WUSA 9 sports anchor Chick Hernandez and Dan Quinn.
You told us on Monday that you're going to bring Joe Whitt down to the field. Who goes, anybody move up to the booth? And ultimately, that move, what do you expect will change or happen with him on that field?
Yep, two parts. First, no one else is moving up from that spot to go. Tom Donatel is on the pass side, is up, in that space. So we're covered in that way. What do you expect what's the advantages probably that you want to ask? Like when you're up and you're down, obviously you can see, Chick, so much, clearer from up top. You can see the substitutions. What you don't feel, players and the fast communication that you sometimes need to get to. So when you're not hitting a mark in a certain space, it's the right call. If it's also happened the other way, when you're on the field and, okay, he needs to get out of the emotion of it and just see the play calling. So it's the right call for us at this time. So the players can look directly at Joe. Joe can look directly at them in between a series, to go into that spot. So no one is going to go up, but Joe will come down, and kind of wanted to give you the pluses and minuses of those. Both are effective. It just, by play caller and what we need at the moment, you make changes and say, all right, this is what's best for us now. And it's not that uncommon where, people have done it in season, out of season, one season to the next. So I think it's the right change up for us right now.
I am open to the Commanders trying anything to make the defense better. I just have a hard time believing that Joe Whitt moving from being in the Commanders' coach's booth during games to being on the Commanders' sideline during games is going to make some big difference. I mean, this kind of change often is the last gasp effort before major change, like someone getting fired. In fact, do you remember the last time that a big deal was made of a Washington coordinator moving from being in the team's coach's booth during games to being on the team's sideline during games? Offensive coordinator Scott Turner, he for the 2022 season moved from being in the coach's booth during games to being on the team's sideline during games. And the idea was to help out the team's new QB1, Carson Wentz, a.k.a. Commander Carson. Well, we know how all of that worked out. The Commanders fired Scott Turner the following January. But we did have our season with Commander Carson.
What's up, Commanders fans? Carson Wentz here, just landed in D.C. I'm excited to get to work, excited to come in and compete, and, as we all know, excited to really go ahead and start to take command.
Yes, thank you, Commander Carson. Well, if you are a Commanders fan, perhaps a fan of Commander Carson, don't be ashamed. Check out bgobsession.com, an outstanding site for Commanders conversation. The Sons of Washington forum on bgobsession.com is tremendous. BG Obsession, or BGO, has been going strong since 2009. No politics, just friendly and passionate discussion about the Commanders and more. Great contests, game day chats, and camaraderie. Both old school and new school fans are welcome. Visit and join BGO at bgobsession.com. bgobsession.com, home to your burgundy and gold obsession. Well, what a way for the Washington Capitals to end their 4-game losing streak. A 6-1 win over the St. Louis Blues at Capital One Arena on Wednesday night in a game in which the Great Eight, Alex Ovechkin, became the first player ever to score at least 900 career NHL regular season goals. So the Caps in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season now are 7-5-1. They snapped a 4-game losing streak. Their longest losing streak all of last regular season was 3 games. And yes, another milestone for Alex Ovechkin. He served as the Caps' top-line left wing. He scored an even-strength goal, 2:39 into the second period for his 3rd goal in this regular season. And for the 9 900th regular season goal of his NHL career. And what a goal this was. Ovi scored on a backhanded shot from a near 0-degree angle beneath the right circle off a missed shot by defenseman Jakob Chychrun. Here was the call by John Walton on the Washington Capitals radio network.
Here comes Walker, and firing a shot from the top of the left circle, banging off the leg pads of Logan Thompson. And now as Beauvillier and Ovechkin will team up. And a puck behind the net. Binnington looking to play it, and he gave it away to Ovechkin. The puck centered up here for Chychrun to drive, and a puck that is in, he score! And it's 900 goals for Alexander Ovechkin! The 900 Club has its first member! The odometer turns over and the bench empties, and Alex Ovechkin has done it. The first player in National Hockey League history to 900 goals.
Great moment for Alex Ovechkin. Nice that he scored this goal number 900 at home. This is Ovi's age 40 season. He has gotten off to a slow start in terms of goal scoring. Of course, there is the question of, is this the season in which he finally drops off? We'll see. But he had a good game on Wednesday night, scored the goal. Also, he was number 3 on the Caps in total shot attempts with 8. The Caps won the puck possession battle. They had 32 shots on goal to the Blues 24, and per natural stat trick had 61 5-on-5 shot attempts to the Blues 40. 2 Caps players each scored 2 goals. Caps second line right wing Tom Wilson scored 2 goals, giving him 8 goals in this regular season. He scored a power play goal, 9:50 into the first period, as the Caps went 1 for 3 on the power play. And he scored an even strength goal 9 minutes into the third period. He finished with a game high 5 shots on goal. He did commit a second period cross-checking minor. And Caps top line right wing Anthony Beauvillier scored 2 second period even strength goals, giving him 3 goals in this regular season. I mentioned defenseman Jakob Chychrun. Nice game for him. He had 3 assists and a game-high tying 9 total shot attempts, and he was number 4 on the Caps in 5-on-5 shot attempt percentage for the game per natural stat trick at 68.18. The Caps with Chychrun on the ice in 5-on-5 situations in the game had 30 shot attempts versus allowing 14 shot attempts. Additionally, yet another good game for the Caps' number 1 goaltender Logan Thompson. He stopped 23 of the 24 shots on goal that he faced. How about this? Thompson became just the 5th NHL goaltender over the past 20 seasons to allow 2 or fewer goals in 9 consecutive appearances to begin his regular season. The Caps went 3 for 3 on the penalty kill. Also, the Caps got back defenseman Rasmus Sandin. He returned from a 5-game absence caused by an upper body injury. He had a primary assist. The bad news is that center Pierre-Luc Dubois is on injured reserve due to a lower body injury that he suffered in the Caps' 3-1 loss to the New York Islanders at Capital One Arena on October 31st, and it sounds like he's going to be out for a while. Also on injured reserve is forward Ethan Frank, this due to an upper body injury that he suffered in the Caps' 1-0 loss at the Dallas Stars on October 28th. The Caps' healthy scratches on Wednesday night were defenseman Declan Chisholm and Dylan McElrath and forward Spencer Smallman. Next up for the Caps at the Pittsburgh Penguins, Thursday night at 7:30. Hey, make your internet experience the best and safest it could possibly be with NordVPN. NordVPN aims to make the internet a better place for everyone. Free the internet from online threats, censorship, and surveillance, and give yourself the ability to access content that isn't usually available where you live. NordVPN allows you to switch your virtual location. This allows you to watch sporting events that aren't usually available where you live. This is especially key if you are a Premier League fan. Switching your virtual location also allows you to save money by purchasing flights, hotel stays, and subscriptions from other countries at cheaper prices. NordVPN can pay for itself and then some. Also, NordVPN allows you to protect your private data like bank details, passwords, and online identity. And know this, one NordVPN account can be used on up to 10 devices. To get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/Galdi and get 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's nordvpn.com/Galdi, nordvpn.com/Galdi, and that link is in the show notes for this episode of the podcast. Yet another horrendous defensive effort by our rebuilding and tanking Washington Wizards, but also yet another impressive showing by the man who they took with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 NBA Draft, Alex Sarr. The Wizards in the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season fell to 1-7 with a 136-107 loss at the Boston Celtics on Wednesday night. The Wizards lost their 6th consecutive game, blew a 12-point first-quarter lead. They trailed by at least 10 points for all of the second half. The Wizards' defense, again, terrible. They allowed the Celtics to score 136 points, go 16 for 41 on threes and 36 for 54 on twos, and have 31 assists versus 7 turnovers. The Wizards committed 19 turnovers, got outscored in terms of points off turnovers, 33. How about that discrepancy? 33. But Alex Sarr had a terrific game offensively. In exactly 29 minutes as a starter, had 31 points, 8 rebounds, including 3 offensive boards, 3 blocks, and 2 assists versus 2 turnovers. He went 4 for 5 on threes, 8 for 15 on twos, and 3 for 4 on free throws. Sarr, for this regular season, is shooting 45.5% on threes and is averaging 19 points, 8.4 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 2.3 blocks per game. Very nice. Not so nice is that Bilal Coulibaly left the game due to tightness in his lower left leg. Man, he has had a hard time staying healthy. Also, Chris Middleton did not play due to right knee soreness. Next up for the Wizards are home games on back-to-back nights this weekend. Home to the Cleveland Cavaliers Friday night at 7 and home to the Dallas Mavericks Saturday night at 7. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Friday show, episode 1194. We'll have much more on the Washington Commanders. In-depth preview of their game against the Detroit Lions at Northwest Stadium this Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk college football week 11 of the 2025 season regarding the FBS teams of the Mid-Atlantic region, including Maryland and Rutgers on Saturday afternoon at 2:30 to try to break a 4-game losing streak. Navy at number 10 Notre Dame on Saturday night at 7:30. And number 14 Virginia hosting Wake Forest on Saturday night at 7. And those rankings, by the way, that I'm using are via the season's first college football playoff rankings, which came out on Tuesday night. Yeah, UVA number 14 in the first CFP rankings of the season. And on Friday's show, we'll discuss the Washington Capitals. The Caps are at the Pittsburgh Penguins Thursday night at 7:30. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and we'll talk to you on Friday.
What's up, Commanders fans? Carson Wentz here, just landed in D.C. I'm excited to get to work, excited to come in and compete, and, as we all know, excited to really go ahead and start to take command.